showcasing the dedication, preservation, and the human potential for greatness within sport. Athletes from across the world will compete and inspire the next generation. Whether watching in the stands, in the pub, on the sofa, in bed, or on the toilet, we can enjoy the strategic and tactical elements of several games. Athletes will train for tens of thousands of hours for the chance every 4 years to represent their country in the greatest games of all, the Olympics. Bringing home a gold medal is the biggest dream for any athlete. It will foster a sense of pride and nationalism to the watchers back home. There are several factors that will determine whether your favourite athlete, team, or country will win the gold. What are they, and how do you win the Olympics? The Olympic Games have their roots in ancient Greece, dating back to the 8th century BC, but the modern Olympics that we know of today were revived in the 19th century. The television and the internet revolutionised communications and our ability to share media. Anyone in the world can watch sport as long as there is a connection. Alone, with friends, with family, even our pets can watch. The Olympics showcases exceptional athletic abilities, inspiring us with incredible displays of skill, determination and sportsmanship. But not every sport in the world can be showcased. The International Olympic Committee, or IOC for short, is the orchestrator for which sports will be considered at the Olympics. There has been an uptick in the number of sports in each Olympics. Badminton, volleyball, taekwondo, golf, sevens rugby, karate, surfing and skateboarding. All of these sports are relatively new events. Some sports like baseball don't stick around year on year. Baseball debuted in 1992 and was played until 2008. However, we will see a comeback after nearly 2 decades when Los Angeles hosts it in 2028. Cricket, despite being the second most watched sport in the world, has only ever appeared in the games once throughout its history. It happened in 1900 and was only played by 2 countries, France and Great Britain, arguably the 2 greatest rivals in the world. But what's funny is the French team was primarily made up of English expats. Cricket, like baseball, will return in Los Angeles. So what determines whether an athlete will win a certain sport? There are a few reasons, but by far the biggest is: you might think that a country's size and population greatly impact its ability to win medals, which is partly true, but population doesn't mean everything. India is the second largest nation on the planet. However, in terms of number of medals won at the Olympics, India does not even finish in the top 50. This leads us to funding. Let's take a look at 2 countries, for example, Great Britain and the United States. Many upcoming athletes get a scholarship, full or part-time tuition, and hence their education is almost free. So children right from a young age are motivated to perform well in sports. Colleges and universities take pride in achievements of their students' athletic ability. This promotes the student to take sports seriously, as there is monetary awards and social acceptance. From coaches to facilities, fitness to injuries, the athlete is cared for. For a country like India, there is hardly any tournaments for any sport, besides maybe cricket. There is no financial incentive, 0 coaching, and 0 facilities. For the students in India, the only way to make money is to study, and study hard, to then get a job. There is 0 incentive for excelling in sports. When we compare this to the conglomerate that is the United States, where there is such a well-established support system, it's no wonder the US excels in sports. It also has the capital to invest in such a wide range of sporting events, which is why they are almost always at the top of the medal table. Great Britain hasn't always been successful at the Olympics. Since 2008, Great Britain has always finished in the top 5, but it hasn't always been this way, often finishing below the top 10. They even finished 36th place in 1996. But what happened? Enter Camelot, the operator for the National Lottery since 1994. As the general British public watched the jackpot get larger and larger, it stimulates more interest, with the slightest possibility of winning that life-changing sum of money. But what's often not known is the National Lottery's specific aim. A significant portion of its ticket sales are taken by the government and spent on culture, media and sport. This gave birth to the newly created government agency called UK Sport. So when a person buys a lottery ticket, they are ever so slightly helping fund British athletes. For the British Olympic programme, with this money, they evaluated what the country was best and worst at, be it rowing, boxing, cycling, athletics or swimming. They then went about building those facilities for those events, hiring coaches and developing the skills required to win. Everyone got more money, and the weaker sports got even more. Funding in this way has seen Great Britain shift into a decade of success. Funding and money is not everything though. South Korea leads the world in archery. Throughout history, Korea has been known for its skill in archery. There was no greater way to keep out the samurai of Japan and the spearmen of China. It's ingrained in their tradition and culture. The sport continues to be insanely popular within the country. There is even an Idol Star Championships, where K-pop stars compete against each other. Since 1984, 27 gold medals out of the 34 medals have been won by South Korea. The South Koreans women's team has never lost. There's not been a single defeat for South Korea's women's team, who started playing in 1988. Why are they so good? To put it simply, South Korea is a rich country. It can afford to spend excess money on facilities, training and coaches for their athletes. There is just over 50 professional archery teams throughout the country. A professional archer will spend over 10 hours a day shooting hundreds or even thousands of arrows at a target, all bloody week. A combination of cultural heritage, popularity, training and funding will keep them at the top. Another country who excels in sport because of culture is Fiji. Fiji is a tiny island country in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Rugby is a major part of culture amongst nearly all oceanic nations, but in Fiji, Rugby Sevens is the number one sport. Rugby Sevens is a variant of rugby union. Teams are made up of 7 players playing 7-minute halves instead of the traditional 15 players playing 40-minute halves. So, while New Zealand and a lot of other nations focus on rugby union, Fiji and our athletes have more focus on sevens, which is why in its short history, Fiji has taken gold. When Fiji win gold, all oceanic islands cheer. Culture can also have negative effects. The United Kingdom or Great Britain does not support and never will ever support a basketball culture. Its Olympic team constantly underperforms in all manner of metrics, losing to even the smallest of nations. The only times it has ever managed to qualify for basketball is when they have been the host. It even lost Olympic funding because it was so bad. The sport does not interest a large majority of the British public. If there is no culture or interest in a sport, a country's chances for success are slim. Geography and climate will often play a pivotal part in a country winning a medal in a particular sport. Great Britain, the United States, Norway, France, Australia, Spain, Sweden, Netherlands, Denmark. All of these countries have an excellent track record for winning medals in sailing. These countries have strong maritime traditions and have access to water and coastlines for training, which is why they excel in this sport. Britain in particular is good at sailing and rowing, winning 31 golds in both sports: Avon, Thames, Severn, Tyne, Tweed, Wye. These rivers make for excellent training grounds. Great Britain makes use of its geography. A landlocked nation like Mongolia, with relatively few major rivers and no access to the sea, is never going to win a medal in any water sport, like sailing, rowing, kayaking or canoeing, so they will not focus on sending athletes or participants to those events. Hungary has historically been a dominant force in canoeing events. Other countries with strong performances and numerous medals include Germany, Romania and Russia. The Soviet Union, which certainly weren't doping, still holds second position. Again, All of these countries are situated in excellent training grounds, making use of Europe's natural geographic might of the Volga, Danube and Rhine. What do Austria, France, Switzerland, Sweden and Norway have in common? That's right, access to beautiful mountains. The Netherlands does not have access to any significant elevation. This leads to a massive disadvantage in a plethora of events like cross-country skiing, alpine skiing and more. There are little geographic sites within their own country for mountainous sports, so the Netherlands will not focus on those events, and instead focus on other sports. Practice makes perfect is a common saying, but if you're first in something, often or not, you will always be better than the people who are relatively new to the game. Why is Canada so good at ice hockey? It's because they got there first, and it originated there. Naturally, they gained the most knowledge and tactics first. The game is intertwined in its history and culture. The game traces back to the indigenous peoples. It's a national sport, built on decades and decades of development and experience. Children play on the ice from when they can walk. Hours and hours of training will mean they will be the best, and the next generation of Canadians will keep their sanity throughout the cold winters. But being first doesn't always guarantee greatness. Fencing is one of only 5 sports to be featured since the first modern Olympic Games. It is one of the quickest sports. A point can be won in a matter of seconds, but it's more complex. With fencing at the Olympics, there are 3 separate events, each with distinct blade designs and set of rules. When we see fencing portrayed in pop culture, it's most likely épée fencing that we see. Fencing traces back to early modern Europe, in places like Italy, France and Hungary. The foil is the lightest of the fencing weapons, and it appeared in the 17th century and was often used in a duel to settle disputes. It's no surprise then that Italy, France and Hungary are some of the best countries in this sport. Over the centuries, the origins transformed to a form of exercise and combat sport. This brings us on to the point that sports change. In the mid-20th century, electricity replaced red chalk to make judging easier. Before electronic scoring, touches were identified with an ink spot left on the opponent's uniform, which is why fencers wear white. But modern fencing is very different from fencing half a century ago, or even a decade ago. In the 1970s, many fencers adapted a style which involved keeping distance, very little fencing, and a lot of bouncing. The French and Koreans have evolved the style of play in recent years, placing emphasis on footwork and large lunges directly into the vicinity of opponents, rather than traditional fencing theory. You can be first at something, but unless you adapt and revolutionise the sport, you will likely be left behind. A final factor for how to win the Olympics is luck. When you look at the medal table, it's a bit deceiving. The most common way to rank how well a country performs in the Olympics is to rank the total medals won and the most amount of gold medals won. It's deceiving as we do not factor in the number of medals given out in each sport or category, or the number of athletes a country will send. A nation's size drastically affects the number of medals it wins. Despite participating in the Games since 1984, Bhutan has never won a medal, a fact often attributed to its small population and the small number of athletes the country sends to each competition. In fact, until 2008, they only sent athletes to a single sport, archery, which is the nation's national sport. China and the United States will always be at the top of the medals table, as they have the largest populations and the ability to send the most athletes and fund the training necessary to win. That leads us on to luck. Sometimes funding, culture, geography and raw talent just isn't enough. Let's go back to 2002, more specifically, the Winter Olympics, in the short track speed skating event. China and the United States are battling it out to win gold like always, but sometimes in life, we just need to take it slow and relax a little, like this Australian Steve Bradbury. As luck would have it, the opponents crashed, allowing Australia a solid win. We all wish we could get through life this easy. Thanks for watching.